From the outside, the Capitol looked like a painting. Sunlight cast long shadows across marble steps. Tourists milled about taking photos, and inside, the rotunda's vaulted ceiling echoed faint footsteps like distant thunder. But below the surface, something stirred. Beneath the grandeur of the Educational Opportunities and Excellence Act unveiling, another story was quietly unfolding. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat in the third row on the Democratic side. A position that didn't scream authority, but radiated readiness. Her navy blue suit was crisp, her blouse muted, her entire appearance calculated to avoid unnecessary attention. And yet, in her stillness, she drew the eye. Her posture was impeccable, not the kind taught in pageants but in courtrooms. Her back straight, her legs crossed precisely at the ankle, her breathing steady, almost rhythmic. But her hands, one resting on her knee, the other quietly scribbling notes, betrayed the mental storm churning beneath the calm exterior. On her lap was a soft black notebook. Compact, no stickers, no frills. The kind carried not for decoration but for documentation. Her handwriting was small, neat, almost architectural in its clarity. Every letter had intention. Every margin held symbols only she understood. This wasn't note-taking. This was calibration. Beside her seat was a leather briefcase. A gift from her first legal mentor, now worn at the corners, softened by years in courthouses, campaign trails, and Capitol hearings. Peeking out from its half-zipped frame were folders marked in color-coded tabs. Yellow for contingency. Red for opposition research. Blue for strategy. Green for ethics. One folder, almost hidden beneath the rest, was labeled simply, Melania. The rotunda buzzed with anticipation. Journalists whispered behind raised hands. Staffers adjusted microphones and shuffled papers. The speaker's aides moved briskly, already lining up the first set of remarks. Somewhere near the back, a tech double-checked the live stream settings. Nothing unusual, except for the tension. It wasn't overt. It was in the way the Republican aides glanced too often at their phones. In the way two journalists exchanged looks instead of notes. In the way the Democratic aides spoke too quietly to be casual. That's when Jasmine's phone buzzed. Once. Just once. She glanced down. The message was short. No name, no source. Check Melania's notes. Off-script incoming. Biden. Viral play. Clock it. She didn't react. She didn't forward it. She simply locked the screen and capped her pen. Her fingers drummed the notebook once. Then stopped. Narrator. VO. Some people prepare for chaos with alarms and reactions. Others prepare with silence and structure. She opened the red folder. Inside were transcripts, quotes, bullet-pointed strategy trees. 3 possible angles of attack, each with a counter-response. Melania Trump wasn't a political rival in the traditional sense. She wasn't running for office. But her platform, her proximity to media attention, made her a wild card. And wild cards were unpredictable only to the unprepared. Across the room, the official program was already underway. The speaker took the podium and welcomed the crowd. Flashes of camera light bounced off gold trim and polished floor tiles. Applause rose, polite, formal, stage. But Jasmine didn't clap. Not because she opposed the bill, she had co-authored several key provisions, but because she was measuring the room. Her eyes moved like a scan. The faces of lobbyists lining the balcony rail, the fidget of a first-year senator's hand, the subtle shake in a journalist's knee. She wasn't watching people. She was watching tells. One aide leaned in to a staffer nearby. Why does Crockett look like she's preparing for trial? They didn't know. Not yet. But Jasmine did. Narrator. VO. This wasn't a press event. It was a setup. Not with cameras and microphones. Those were standard. But with intention. Melania Trump was scheduled to speak after the speaker. A ceremonial statement, per the official agenda. But Jasmine knew better. She knew media moments were rarely accidental. She closed her red folder. Shifted slightly in her seat. Checked her watch. The moment was coming. and she was ready to meet it. The air shifted before anyone saw her, like the stillness before a summer storm. It wasn't loud, it was instinctual, the kind of pause that happens in a room when something known but unspoken crosses the threshold. Melania Trump had arrived. She didn't enter like a politician. She entered like a spectacle, or rather, like someone trained not to appear like one. Her cream-colored dress was flawless, tailored to perfection. Her heels made no sound on the marble floor, but every step resonated. She walked as if the air parted for her. Narrator, VO. Some use power to shift a room. Others use poise. All conversation dulled as she passed. Aides adjusted their posture. Cameras re-angled. Her entourage moved in a silent rhythm. Aides in navy suits, a press advisor with an encrypted phone in one hand, another assistant clutching a slim folder, gold embossed with MT. She offered no smiles, only nods, precise, performative, timed. When she reached her row, 2 seats ahead of Jasmine, she sat with elegance so practiced it felt automatic. Her bag never touched the seat. Her hands folded gently across her lap. She knew where the cameras were. She always did. From Jasmine's perspective, it was choreography. Strategic. Melania didn't just know the room. She knew how to stage herself within it. But Jasmine didn't turn to look. She didn't need to. She had studied this moment already, not on paper but in behavior. Jasmine's folder was closed now, resting on her thigh. Her pen was capped, her expression unreadable. She knew that if Melania was going off script, she wouldn't do it early. She would wait for the crowd to soften, for the illusion of civility to settle. A young aide leaned toward a press row reporter. "She's early, trying to claim narrative real estate," the reporter whispered back. The speaker returned to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I now welcome a woman whose advocacy for American children has remained constant, former First Lady Melania Trump." Polite applause filled the chamber, measured, calculated. Republicans clapped first. Democrats followed, slower, reserved. Melania rose. She moved to the podium with precision. Her notes rested in a sleek black binder, laid gently on the lectern. She scanned the audience once, not to connect, but to register. "Thank you, Mr. Speaker," she began. "It is always an honor to speak on behalf of our children, our future." Her voice was soft, accented, familiar. She spoke for several minutes in careful, polished statements, praising bipartisanship, thanking colleagues, highlighting the work of the Educational Opportunities and Excellence Act. Jasmine followed silently. So far, nothing new. But then, a beat. A pause too long. Melania's tone shifted, so slightly it almost slipped past unnoticed. "Of course," she said, eyes lowering to her notes. "Effective policy requires effective leadership. And when we face moments of uncertainty," she looked up, "we must ask, who is truly guiding the nation forward?" The sentence hung. The air tightened. When our president cannot recall names, when he wanders mid-event, we must consider, what message are we sending our children? The shift was complete. The rotunda, moments ago filled with ceremony, was now charged with something else. No one moved. No one coughed. Journalists froze mid-note. Democratic staffers stiffened. Camera shutters clicked in stunned rhythm. Jasmine sat motionless. Narrator, VO, it wasn't a line. It was a weapon, dipped in velvet, sharpened with performance. Melania continued, her voice still serene. "This is not personal. It is a call for clarity." Then came the smile, slight, composed. But Jasmine saw the signal. The attack wasn't reckless. It was rehearsed. And it wasn't aimed at just one man. It was aimed at the space between truth and performance, a space Jasmine had lived in her whole career. She breathed in, 4 counts, and waited. A single breath lingered in the air, the kind that holds before a verdict. Melania Trump's final words echoed beneath the dome, not loud, not accusatory, but laced with a precision that felt more surgical than sensational. "This is not personal. It is a call for clarity." The silence that followed wasn't stunned. It was processing. The audience sat frozen between reaction and protocol, unsure whether to applaud or recoil. Narrator, VO. Some speeches are meant to inspire. Others are designed to destabilize. Melania stepped back from the podium, hands gracefully folding in front of her. The smile she wore never cracked, but it no longer felt effortless. The applause was slow, Republicans responding first, some standing. Democrats remained seated, some frowned, some simply stared. From the third row, Jasmine Crockett still had not moved. She leaned forward slightly now, but not out of reaction. It was preparation. Narrator, VO. What do you do when the room has been tilted deliberately off-center? You find your footing before you speak. The speaker returned to the microphone, voice neutral but tight. Thank you, Mrs. Trump, for those thought-provoking remarks. He barely paused. Next, we welcome Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, who played a pivotal role in shaping the bill we present today. The room shifted again. This time, it wasn't electric. It was anticipatory. Jasmine rose. Her movement was deliberate, not slow, not performative. Controlled. She adjusted the jacket cuff at her wrist, slipped the capped pen into her pocket, gathered her notebook and folder, not like props but like evidence. She stepped into the aisle, a narrow strip of marble between her and the podium, and began to walk. Each heel strike echoed. Tap, tap, tap. Reporters forgot their notepads. A senator whispered, "Here we go." She reached the lectern, set her folder down, aligned it with the edge. 2 fingertips rested lightly on each side. No glance at Melania, no scan of the crowd. Her eyes remained down, until they didn't. She looked up, and met the room. Narrator, VO. In politics, as in law, silence can be a scalpel. But only when held by someone who knows what to cut. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Jasmine said, voice smooth, steady, without artifice. I came here today to speak about equity in education, to discuss classrooms and opportunity and the shared responsibility we hold in building the futures of all our children. She paused. Let the room feel the calm. But I cannot ignore what has been said. Because silence, in the face of subtle cruelty, is not civility. It is complicity. The chamber did not move. The cameras zoomed in. Jasmine's voice remained level. We have entered an age where compassion is framed as incompetence, where empathy is equated with weakness, and where age or illness is wielded not with concern, but with calculated contempt. She opened her folder, lifted a single page. Her fingers didn't tremble. In 2018, during the launch of the Be Best initiative, Mrs. Trump stated, and I quote, "We must choose to lead with grace, and treat everyone with kindness and respect." She folded the paper gently. I believe those words. I believed them then. I want to believe they still hold value today. Melania sat motionless, but her hands were now clasped tighter than before. Jasmine continued. I watched my father, a professor of mathematics, lose his memory. Slowly at first, then more rapidly. And never, in any moment of his decline, did I witness a loss of character. Because dignity is not measured by clarity of speech. It is measured by the constancy of one's humanity. A hush, not because people were stunned, but because they were listening. This is not a rebuttal, she said. This is a reminder. That power is not in how loudly we strike. It is in how clearly we stand. She closed her folder, and the room exhaled. For a moment, Jasmine stood silent. Not frozen, but deliberate. The silence wasn't empty. It was charged, like a conductor raising a baton before the first note. The entire chamber held its breath. I stand here today, she began, her voice carrying with neither tremble nor tremor, because I know what it is to be underestimated. She looked out, not at any one person, but at the entire room. And I know the weight of restraint. You see, she continued, in courtrooms, the most dangerous thing you can do is speak too soon. The smartest thing? Let the lie arrive first, then walk it back with evidence. She lifted a page from her folder. We've heard a polished critique of leadership. But polished doesn't always mean principled. She held up another document. These are the funding maps for Title I allocations in public schools, the same ones this bill enhances. Do you know who advocated for those? A man who some say forgets names, but never forgets the faces behind zip codes. A visible ripple went through the Democratic aisle. Even across the chamber, one Republican aide lowered their phone. Jasmine's voice did not rise, but it sharpened. Leadership is not a performance. It's a promise. And when you mock a man's age while standing in the glow of his legislative work, you don't look principled. You look petty. A pause. Then, we don't build better futures by tearing down those who made today possible. Now she turned slightly, just enough to cast her gaze in Melania Trump's direction. Not a stare, a mark of presence. My father once told me, dignity doesn't shout. It endures. The silence was not awkward. It was reverent. We talk about what we teach our children. But children aren't listening to what we say. They're watching how we behave. So let's show them what leadership looks like when it doesn't flinch. When it doesn't humiliate. When it doesn't need to clap back, because truth doesn't need applause. She leaned forward. It just needs to be said. Then she stepped back, and the room changed. The rotunda remained still for half a heartbeat after Jasmine stepped away from the podium, a vacuum of noise and movement. Then, slowly, like a wave pulled by unseen gravity, the applause began. It wasn't thunderous, not at first. It was grounded. From the left, a steady rhythm. From the center, a few scattered claps. Even on the right, hesitantly, some joined. Not out of allegiance but recognition. Narrator, VO, in that moment, applause wasn't about party. It was about principle. Melania Trump remained seated, her expression carefully composed. But something in her posture had shifted, an imperceptible stillness that bordered on retreat. Her team stirred around her, whispering, typing, planning. Jasmine returned to her seat without looking left or right. Her folder closed, her hands folded, her face calm. The speaker cleared his throat again. Tried to resume. We now proceed to the signing. But it was too late. The event was still happening, yes, but the moment had already moved on. Within minutes, the rotunda buzzed with murmurs. Journalists typing furiously. Staffers texting reporters. Hashtags ignited like brushfire. Hashtag Crockett moment. Hashtag dignity is power. Hashtag silence strikes back. Clips of her speech hit Twitter within 10 minutes. Annotated, subtitled, clipped into reels and reposted across TikTok and YouTube. One user posted, "She didn't raise her voice. She raised the floor." Another, "That's how you turn mockery into a masterclass." Cable news scrambled to update segments. Commentators rewrote intros mid-broadcast. Even outlets that rarely covered house ceremonies led with Jasmine's remarks. Across the country, the ripple deepened. A high school civics teacher in Michigan emailed her entire faculty. "Please watch this. This is how you model restraint under pressure." In Chicago, an HR director forwarded the clip with one line. "Let's include this in our leadership workshop next quarter." A law school professor in Georgetown paused a lecture to stream the entire segment. Forget case studies. This is rhetorical strategy in action. And yet, amid the storm of digital validation, Jasmine stayed silent. No press release, no tweet, no retweet, just a quiet return to her office, where the real work waited. Narrator, VO, she didn't need to trend to make an impact. She'd already shifted the lens. And the nation, now watching, wasn't just reacting. It was reflecting. The next morning, the Capitol press corps arrived early. Not for legislation, for Jasmine, but she didn't hold a press conference. She didn't appear on cable news. Her office issued a single line. Congresswoman Crockett stands by her remarks and looks forward to continued work on education equity. Inside her office, Jasmine sat at her desk, reviewing committee schedules, not headlines. Simone, her communications director, hovered by the door. "They want you on every show tonight," Simone said. "Primetime, you name it." Jasmine didn't look up. Do they want the bill breakdown? No, just reactions, sound bites, headlines. Jasmine placed her pen down. Then they don't want me. They want spectacle. Narrator, VO. The price of truth isn't always backlash. Sometimes it's distortion. Across the aisle, Republican leadership met behind closed doors. Who cleared Melania's lines? Someone demanded. We told her to stay scripted. But the damage was done. Melania's team released a statement. Mrs. Trump regrets that her remarks were misunderstood and reiterates her commitment to respectful dialogue. But no one misunderstood. They remembered Jasmine's words. Truth doesn't need applause. It just needs to be said. And the contrast stuck. Within conservative circles, a new memo circulated. Avoid personal critique. Stick to policy. We are post-Crockett now. Adjust accordingly. The speech had become more than a response. It had become precedent. A quiet recalibration began in offices, boardrooms, debate prep sessions. Political advisors whispered a new warning. Don't poke Crockett. She won't hit back, she'll level the whole floor. Narrator, VO. In politics, as in law, some wins aren't loud. They're lasting. 6 days later, the rotunda was quiet again, but different. Tourists walked the same polished floor. Pages carried folders from one wing to another. The grand chandelier cast its golden net of light across the domed ceiling. Yet the silence now carried memory. What Jasmine had said lingered not in sound, but in shape. The shape of conversations changed, of strategies reconsidered, of rhetoric softened. Narrator, VO. Some echoes don't fade. They fold into the marble. They instruct. In committee rooms, new staffers brought up her name when asked about how to manage pressure. Do what Crockett did. Don't mirror it. Measure it. A political science professor in Virginia assigned the full transcript of her speech for critical analysis. A startup tech CEO used the phrase strategic civility in her quarterly briefing. And in a private school in Atlanta, a 9th grade student quoted Jasmine's line. Dignity doesn't shout, it endures. In a student council election speech, she won. Narrator, VO. The words had moved beyond Washington. They had become utility, blueprint, standard. Melania Trump remained silent. Her aides rerouted scheduled appearances. A fundraiser was canceled. A podcast invitation politely declined. Her circle grew smaller. Her public moments fewer. Some speculated about a rebrand. Others whispered the truth. She underestimated the room, and the room remembered. Meanwhile, Jasmine continued working, quietly, steadily. She reintroduced a funding amendment that passed in bipartisan vote. She visited 3 schools in Texas, each in underserved districts, and brought the bill's effects directly to the communities it was meant to uplift. She never once mentioned the speech. But in those schools, children asked to take pictures with her. Parents quoted her. Principals thanked her, not just for funding, but for showing what it looked like when someone refused to fold under pressure. One teacher handed her a note, written by a student. You made me feel like I can speak and still be kind. Thank you. Jasmine folded the note gently and slipped it into her journal. She didn't need headlines. She had legacy. Months passed. The moment faded from headlines, but not from memory. Not from classrooms. Not from courtrooms. Not from the quiet corners of America where people had grown tired of noise and started searching for meaning again. In a university auditorium in Pennsylvania, a young woman presented her thesis on the evolution of modern political discourse. The final slide bore Jasmine's quote. You don't have to raise your voice to raise the standard. In a corporate boardroom in Seattle, an executive cited the Crockett model as an example of how to lead difficult conversations with dignity, not dominance. And in living rooms, the kinds without marble floors or congressional titles, women shared clips of Jasmine's speech with their daughters, with the simple caption, "Watch this. Learn this." Narrator, VO. She didn't ask for a spotlight. She carried a mirror, and what she reflected back wasn't rage. It was resolve. Back in Washington, Jasmine continued her work. No security entourage. No self-congratulatory tour. Just the same worn notebook. The same gold pen. And a journal entry, written late one night, when the city was sleeping and the Capitol dome glowed silently in the dark. Let others chase the flame. I'll hold the match, because one quiet light in the right hands can change the room forever. She closed the book. The chamber may forget the noise, but it remembers the clarity. And sometimes the most powerful moment in politics is not the moment you win. It's the moment you decide not to yield.